going to record this. Okay, so we have Mr. Dean Fox in the house. Let me tell you a little bit about him. I met him and his lovely wife when I was speaking up in Newcastle. I don't want to misinform you in any way, shape, or form, so I want to tell you that Dean has been through so much in his life. Tonight he's going to talk us through his dream process for success to help you move from where you are to where you want to be. I'm excited, and I have my notebook in hand. Dean is a leading mindset coach, network marketer. My network marketing girls, pay close attention. I've got a few network marketing ladies in the house. International speaker, business owner, and leading trainer throughout the UK. He's experienced highs and lows in entrepreneurship, has lost businesses, has been bankrupt. I love that you've been bankrupt and you're back on the back on the top of the game again. Almost died twice, but has shown resilience and keeps going to build his life and business. Wow, wow, wow. He's one of the few coaches and trainers in the UK in the network marketing industry who's still actively building a business, giving him real insight and connection to those in the field. He's got a network marketing business that puts him in the top 1% of his organization. You ladies are in for a treat. Oops, sorry, my phone's gone off. We're talking about multiple six-figure consultancy business and other business interests too. So without further ado, ladies, I'm going to hand over to the amazing Mr. Dean Fox.
Thank you very much for the intro, Denise. How are you?
I'm amazing, and I'm so excited. I've never heard you speak, so I am so ready. I'm ready.
So, I don't know how long we've got this evening, but I wanted to share a few bits and pieces. So first of all, a little bit of my background. I know Denise is giving you a bit of a run through of some stuff, but I always think it helps people get to know me and sets the scene in terms of my history and background and where we're going. And then, as you already mentioned, Denise, the stuff that I've learned over maybe the last 10, 12 years is what I implement on a daily basis. It's what I coach, both in my network marketing business and in other businesses. And it's basically 5 steps, 5 key steps that will take anybody from where they are to where they want to be. And I'm going to share with you some of those 5 steps this evening.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Really looking forward to that. So a little bit about me to start with. So my background is originally in engineering. I was an apprentice engineer. But my story, my journey, if you like, really started when I was 11 years old. So I want to take you back to then, and an incident that kind of really was a starting point for me. I kind of was a junior footballer, and the really defining point for me in the early stages was that I remember sitting in a dressing room before a game, a really important game in our region at the time as a young player. And what used to happen was you'd sit there and the coach would come in and he'd read out the team sheet and he'd tell you who was playing in that particular game. And the season before that, I'd been leading goal scorer. I'd been one of the top players in the club. And so I was sitting there. I can remember all the feelings of excitement, the nerves going, everyone was talking, the coach came in, we were all anticipating the team sheet, and he started to read out names, and my name wasn't on the sheet. And I was gutted. I couldn't work out. I kept thinking, how did I not make this team sheet? How did I not make the team today? And from that moment on, I kind of made up this story in my head that maybe I wasn't as good as I thought I was. And so I kind of became this overachiever, and it didn't matter what I did, I had to do it. I couldn't just do it to the best of my ability. I had to be number one. And I did that whether it was school, so whether it was academic, whether it was sport, whatever it was, whether it was employment, my career, I was always had to be the very best. And that kind of really drove me for the first maybe 10, 15, 20 years of my working life. I started as an engineer. Before long, I was a senior engineer. Not long after that, I was a shift supervisor. Then I went on to be an operations manager. Then I went to be a technical manager. Then I was a customer support supervisor. Then I was the commercial support engineer. Then I was a commercial manager. And every step forward, I kept thinking, this is going to be it. This next step is going to give me what I'm missing. This is going to make me happy. This is going to make me feel the way I want to feel. This is going to prove that I'm good enough. And it never did. every step felt like there was something missing.
Mm.
And so I got to a stage where I'd reached, in essence, from the outside, the pinnacle, if you like. I was national sales director for a business with a 7-figure account, 20 odd salespeople. I had a company car, expense account. I was doing 60 to 80,000 miles traveling a year. And on the face of it, I had everything, but I still didn't feel like good enough. And I read a book that was given to me by a colleague, which was Rich Dad Poor Dad, by Robert Kiyosaki. And that book opened my eyes a little bit further, because I then started to think, well, okay, maybe it's not career, maybe it's business. Maybe in order to prove that I'm good enough, I need to be in business. So I started, my wife and I, alongside my career at the time, we started a property business. So that was around about 2003. And between 2003 through to 2006, that grew very quickly. It was doing really, really well. And come 2007, there was some major changes in the company I was working for, and they were looking to restructure the way that they operated. I didn't feature in their plans particularly in terms of the way that we operated currently, and I didn't want to move to the roles that they were talking about. So we parted ways at that point. But I kind of just said, well, that's all right. We've now got this property business that's really growing fast. We'll just focus all our attention in there. So between 06 and 07, we grew that even faster. We got into not just investment, but we were involved in development. Things were growing. We did some JVs with a couple of other companies, and things were going really well. And so much so that in 07, one of the contacts that we had within the sector, we were out for dinner with them, and they talked about they were diversifying, investing some of their profits in another opportunity. And so we looked at it. We looked at what they were doing. We did the same. So we diversified and invested some of our profits as well. And again, that was another stream, and that started to do really well. And so by about 08, beginning of 08, we were kind of, everything was good. I was thinking, yeah, this is it. We've cracked it. I now feel like I'm good enough. I've now proved to everybody whatever it is that we want to do. And then two things happened. Or three things, I suppose. 08, we had the worst financial crisis that the world has ever seen up to this point now. And that literally virtually turned a tap off to our property business, our development business. We had a line of credit with several organizations at 5 p.m. one night, and all of them had gone by 9 a.m. the next morning.
Wow.
And not only had our line of credit gone, but they then started to demand back anything that we had outstanding. So it was like a 6-month disaster zone. Everything, we were losing money hand over fist. We were losing projects. We were having to sell things for way less than we purchased them for. It's just a financial car crash. By the end of 08, beginning of 09, that had started to settle on the basis that there was virtually nothing left. And we said, right, well, that's okay. What we're going to have to do is the money that we invested, some of the profits that we invested, we're going to have to take some of those back, because they're going to actually see us through this next period. So we'll get those back, and then that'll stabilize us for the next few months, next year or so, while we kind of take stock and we look at where the market goes and what else we're going to do. And we found out late 08, early 09 that there wasn't any investments either.
Wow.
The guy that's running that business is serving 12 years, I think, currently.
Oh my God. Wow.
So yeah, there wasn't none of that left either. And so we kind of said, right, okay, I've always been, one of the things I've always had is a level of resilience. That's one I'll touch on later. And I was like, okay, so there's nothing we can do about that. Let's just park that to one side. We need to focus on what we're doing forward. What's our next step? What's our next plan of action? And so Christy and I talked about it, and I said, well, look, worst case scenario, I can get a job short term. I'll go back into sales, and that'll see us through, and we'll see what happens from there. We'll look to rebuild. And then in March of 2010, my wife Christine and I were involved in a road traffic accident, quite a bad one, and it was, you know, the road was closed for like 5 hours. It took them 2.5 hours to cut us out of the car.
Oh my God.
And we were unable, I was unable, Christine shouldn't have been, but we were unable to work for the best part of a year in that recovery period after that. And what that meant was that there was no way I could go back and do some of the things I said I was going to do, like a job, because I couldn't drive. We weren't physically capable. And anything that we had left, we kind of used in that 8, 9, 10 month period just to try and stay afloat. And we were just bleeding money, essentially. And we had we at that point we'd retained 2 of the other properties that we managed to keep, and we were in danger of losing those. So I'd said I had no other alternative at that particular point in time. So I ended up bankrupt personally, and that meant we lost the other 2 properties. But by luck rather than good management, the home that the family home we lived in, that was one of the properties that we developed and built. And at that particular point in time, when the property market was the way it was fairly easy to get mortgages or to get loans. And we decided, because we were building another property at the same time, which we were going to sell, that we put that property in Christine's name, just for ease of dealing with the finance. And that meant, extremely luckily, that when I went bankrupt, that they couldn't take the house because it wasn't.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
Otherwise, we would have lost that as well. And that was our only saving grace,
Yeah.
but it was the one thing I swore I didn't want ever to lose. And what happened from there on in was that between March 2010 and the end of that year, unable to work, unable to generate any income coming in, no real kind of idea where I was going to go. All of those doubts that I had from being younger started to come back.
Yeah, sure.
It all becomes your fault. I knew this would happen. I should have just stuck to having a safe job, all of the usual things that we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
All the negative self-talk. To a point where I went out, it was kind of late that year, so December, not long before Christmas. It was an early morning. It was quite frosty, but it was quite clear. The sky was quite bright. And I went for a walk. I'd said to Christine, I need to clear my head. And I'd gone out, walked into the woodlands near where we lived. And I say this often now, but I had no intention of coming back. And so I'd gone into the woodlands really to end it all. And I don't know what happened that day specifically, but apart from being massively frustrated and angry and emotional, I kept asking myself, okay, so I've gone through all of this, but there has to be a reason for that, because I could have been killed in a car accident. And I wasn't. So why am I here? What's the purpose to test me with all this stuff? Why am I going through all of this? There must be another reason. And so I did come back that day, and I needed something, a bit of inspiration. I'd gone into the office. I took a book from the bookshelf, which my son had bought me years before, and I'd read it a couple of times, but never really did anything with it. It's a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And I literally couldn't put it down. I read it all that night. I stayed up all night to read the book, read it cover to cover. And I kept saying to myself, how did I never see this stuff when I was reading it before? Mm-hmm. And that really was a turning point in terms of me personally. I'd like to say that everything happened and it clicked and everything was perfect within the next few days, but that's not how life is. But what it did was it sparked this idea of, okay, there is more, there has to be more, and the difference between what everyone else is doing, the success everyone else is having, and the situation I'm in, they're no different to me. So it's got to be down to something I'm doing or something within me. So that was my journey into personal development. And that's continued ever since. I've never stopped. I continue to learn every single day. But one of the big changes for me was a couple of years, if I fast forward a couple of years in my personal development journey, I'd gone back and got a job in that short time just to try and make ends meet and keep us ticking over. And two things happened in that short space of time. I was introduced to network marketing, which is effectively built, its foundation is built on personal development. So that immersed me even deeper into personal development. And the second thing was I heard somebody speak at an event who was a coach. And it was one of those moments, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but it's one of those moments where there was to be 200 people at this event, but it was almost like there was nobody else there. It was just shining on me, and he was talking just to me. And as soon as the event was over, I reached out to him and said, I need to have a conversation with you. We talked, we had lots of things in common. And I'd said that, and I wanted to do some work with him. And I definitely couldn't afford his fees, that was for sure. But I said that I was going to do work with him. And by the end of that year, I'd got together enough money to start working with him. But I didn't have enough money to continue every single month. I just knew I had to do something. And that's another thing that I've learned along the way, is that when you actually decide and make a commitment to do something, you'll be amazed at where things turn up from.
Yes. Thank you, Dean. Thank you. It is incredible, isn't it? It's stepping over that line that is the difference that makes the difference. So I'm loving the stories. Ladies, are you loving this? This is just like, it's compelling. Please carry on.
So I made a commitment. I said I'm going to work with him, and every single month since then, I've never ever not been able to afford my fees to be coached or on a year. The other thing that's taught me is that we've never not been able to do anything else either. So we committed to do lots of other things in that period. Always managed to be able to do. And so I say a lot to people when they are doubting themselves or they're thinking about doing something. One of the things I always say is it'll never happen ever until you've decided it's going to happen. It's no good saying, I think I'd like to do this. Put a date in the diary and say, I will do it by then. We're going to do that, because you'll be amazed at what shows up.
And that's so true. And one of my stories that I tell over and over again is that, for me, I left a corporate job. Well, I left an NHS job that was paying me a very handsome salary. And I didn't believe that I could make that salary, that income on my own. And I set myself an intention in July 2017, which was by the 31st of December 2017, I want to be earning £10,000 a month. And I wrote this and I said it every single day, and I made it my truth. And the 31st of December came and went, and I didn't make my first 10 grand, but the 31st of July came and went, and I made £18,000. And it's not about the money, but it's about that, I committed to that, and I made that happen. So amazing. Thank you. Carry on, please, Dean.
So, we've done lots of other things since then, but what happened then was that all of the stuff I was learning from him, and I had a kind of another defining moment, which was that during one of the coaching sessions, we were talking about limiting beliefs and things like that, and I talked about this idea of I'd always felt that I wasn't good enough, and I kept striving to be number one. It got to the stage sometimes where I wouldn't actually participate in something if I didn't think I could be the best.
Yeah, sure.
So I talked through that with him, and we spent a good couple of hours together just focusing on that particular belief that I had. And while he was working with me, I took myself back to that childhood incident, being sat there in the dressing room, and it just became blindingly obvious at that point that it wasn't anything to do with what anybody else had said. It wasn't that my name wasn't on the team sheet. I just interpreted that to mean that was about me, that I wasn't good enough, and that wasn't true. It never was, nor would it ever be. And in that moment, I kind of, again, I had this breakthrough, this kind of blindingly obvious thing that, hang on a minute, then it's always been me. It's never been about anything else. It's just about me. And once I make a decision that I'm going to be the best that I can be, then nothing else will matter.
Yeah, awesome.
And then from there on in, I kind of made this decision that, okay, well, if I felt like this, there must be other people feeling like this, and I don't want other people to have to go through what I've gone through to get here. That was kind of my step almost into coaching. And
Yeah.
it was never a plan. It was that as things changed for me, and as as we grew our network marketing business, as we grew some of our other businesses, people started to ask what we were doing.
Yeah.
And as we shared stuff, people said, "Oh, I'd really like your help with this. Or I've gone through something similar. Can you give me some advice?" And that really, it was almost just another step. It was never a, "This is where I plan to be."
Yes.
But even from our network marketing business, coaching and supporting and developing is the bit that we enjoy the most. It's where we get our fulfillment from anyway. So it was a natural step for us. And then all the add-ons like speaking and doing these sorts of things, I've come on the back of that. And I've suddenly realized how much I enjoy all of this.
Yeah.
Being able to share all the information that we have, and perhaps share enough value for somebody else to be able to say that, yeah, that really helped me. That played a part in my journey.
I think that's incredible, because we all have peaks and troughs in our life, and when we're in the troughs, we can think it's the end of the world, but we don't know what's on the horizon for us. And your story is just an incredible story of resilience. And I'm also a great believer as well that that belief system, that belief that limited you for so long, actually served you to because it's good. It's good for us, but then I guess there comes a time, it's like, people are transient in our lives, so beliefs can be transient too. It served you to that point, but then when you acknowledge it wasn't serving you anymore and you didn't need it, time to get rid of it. So
yeah, absolutely. And I'm also a big believer that we think everything happens for a reason. We're on a pathway to a particular point, and we're being guided towards that point, whatever that point is.
yeah.
Sometimes we can't see it. It's not as easy to join the dots looking forward, but it's far easier to join them looking backwards. So I now look back at some of those incidents, and I talk about them saying, they were some of the greatest things that ever happened to us. And people will say, well, how could you nearly being killed in a car accident be good for you? And I'm like, because I wasn't supposed to be on the path we were on.
Yeah.
I've had several stories, if you like, or several signs that we were on the wrong path, and we didn't take them. And so it was almost,
yes. And it's so interesting, because I think that happens to a lot of people, that just because maybe there's momentum, but intuitively, it's wrong, we just can't continue going with that. Just want to look at the comments here. So inspired by your story. I have often the belief that I'm not good enough. You know what, Maggie? Ultimately, if you strip back everybody's limiting beliefs, it all comes back to one core belief, that you're not good enough. So I really acknowledge I've got that going on too, and I remember where it's come from, and that that was something that was guiding my life. I was always trying to be something to prove to my dad, because I made a decision I wasn't good enough. But everybody, when you strip away, it's just about how they got to I'm not good enough. But it all comes to, every single one of us thinks I'm not good enough, but it's just the route that we took to get there that differs for everybody.
yeah, absolutely. I echo that, Denise. One of the things that I talk a lot about now is that people talk about changing their thoughts and things like that, and I often say it's not actually your thoughts that are the problem. Thoughts arise and they go. They're like clouds. They just come and go. The problem is that we select particular thoughts and then we focus on them.
Yes.
That's what causes us the problems.
Yes. No, you're absolutely right. Please tell us about your, I mean, I could talk to you for ages, but I would love to know about your D.R.E.A.M methodology now. And I know that some of my ladies here, I've got my network marketers are in the house. I've got Jill's and Fiona do network marketing. I think that's it. So I've got two, but I've got other ladies in my crew who are network marketers as well. So any tips that you have for them in particular, because I'm not a network marketer, but I'd love to know your take on how they can, create the most successful business. So please tell us about your D.R.E.A.M.
Perfect. Sure. The idea of this came from I believe there's 5 steps, 5 key steps. It doesn't matter what business you're in, whether it's network marketing or whether it's a traditional business or even a career to a certain extent. But I think there's 5 steps for any business, and they spell the letters of DREAM. That's where the strategy came from. And the first one, obviously, the letter D, that stands for define. So whenever I'm working with a client, I want them to define exactly what it is that they want. And the reason it's for me, it's step 1, is the number of times since I started coaching and since I've been in network marketing that I meet with people who've got successful businesses in all walks of life, but suddenly realize that the business isn't aligned with what we want in life.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation just very recently with a 7-figure business owner, and we sat down. It was all lunch. He was asking for some support, and I said to him, "Why do you think you need my support? What is it? The problem? You've got a very successful business. Why do you think you need something else?" And his words were, "Well, I've got this 7-figure business, but I'm having to work 60 to 80 hours in it every single week, and I wanted to travel the world by this age. So I've got a business that pays me enough to be able to do it, but I don't have any time to do it."
Yeah.
And I talked about, well, okay, maybe it's time to think about, what is it you really want, and then have a strategy that aligns with that. So whenever I'm working with people now, I often talk to them about, well, decide what it is that you want and then build a strategy that meets it.
Yeah, perfect.
So one of the questions that I ask myself on a daily basis is that whenever I'm about to make a decision about something, the question I ask is, if I say yes to this, will it take me closer to the ultimate goal that I've got for my life? And if it doesn't, then I'm not doing it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And ladies, this is one of my favorite things as well. I ask yourself the question, the hot and cold game when you were a kid, you're getting warmer, you're getting colder, you're getting warmer, you're getting colder. Ask yourself, is this getting me warmer or colder? And if you're getting colder, park it and leave it. Otherwise, go with it. Great. Excellent. Carry on, please.
Absolutely. So, that's a question that I ask often. I'm sure it was Steve Jobs who said it, I can't remember specifically, but I think he said that he used to ask himself a similar question, but his version was that he would look in the mirror every morning and say, if today was my last day on the planet, would I be going to do what I'm about to do today?
Oh, wow. Powerful.
And he said that if he said no to that question 3 or 4 days on the trot, then he'd start to think seriously about making some serious changes about what he was about to do.
Wow. Really love that question.
So, it really is great to say, is this taking me to where I want to be? And if it isn't, then I'm not going to do it. But in order for that question to work, you need to know what it is that you want.
Yeah.
And so that's why I start with defining what it is that you want. And in my experience of working with people, when we talk about goal settings and vision for their life, my personal view is that 12 months, if you ask people to set 12-month goals, they're too short because people overestimate what they can do in 12 months.
Yeah.
But they massively underestimate what they can do in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And equally, if you ask someone to look at where they'd like to be in 10 years' time, most people can't see that far ahead.
Yeah.
They don't have a big enough belief in themselves to say, oh yeah, I'm sure I can do this.
Yeah.
I often work in the middle. I work around 3 years, and I ask people to look at what would you like to be doing in 3 years' time, but I do it in reverse. So when I'm working with a client, for example, I'd be saying to them, okay, so today's the 22nd of October, 2022. We're having the same conversation in the same place, but you're about to tell me why the last 3 years has been the most amazing 3 years of your life.
Awesome.
And what you're going to tell me is all the things that needs to have happened in order for that to be the case.
Yeah. Love it.
And then people can start to write down what that is. And what I would normally do is I just funnel. I'd get them to set, I give them four key areas of their life to set goals around.
Mm-hmm.
One is financial, one is personal, one is lifestyle, and the other one is contribution. And then anything that doesn't fit into those, we put in a category called general. And I ask them to set at least 6 to 10 goals in every single one of those categories. And then what we would do is we would rank those goals in order of priority that resonates with them. And then we'd also rank the categories. And what happens over time is, I've worked with clients, some of them will take 2 hours to do this, some will take 2 weeks. But eventually you funnel down into what is the number one thing that is most important to you in your life.
Yeah.
In those categories. And that's what I hold out to them as being, okay, that's the vision. That's what we want. That's what we're going to use as our question to say, is what we're about to do aligned with that?
Sure. Cool.
So that's the D. That's how we define exactly what it is that we want. And that's our foundation, because that helps us look at what strategy we want to implement to get there. The R from dream, that's all about resilience. And I tell a story sometimes, and it depends whether people have got an experience that relates to it. But ultimately, you'll be aware of this, Denise, with your US background. But I tell stories about in the US they have, particularly in California area, in places like that, they have children's parties where they have what's called a piñata.
Yes. Yeah.
And I actually heard Ed Milet talking about this the other day on one of his podcasts, which was amazing. He and I've shared a similar story, so I don't know where it came from originally, but the idea is that children's parties have a piñata, and the first thing that they do is blindfold the children, give them a stick, and ask them to try and hit it. And so what happens is people are waving blindly in some sort of aimed direction to try and break it in order to get the sweets. And what happens usually is people struggle to do that, so then they'll take the blindfold off them, and then they'll give them an opportunity to do it. And even then, what will happen is you'll have people or children who, having taken the blindfold off, will try and hit it 3 or 4 times. They might miss it, they might strike it, but it doesn't break, and then they give up. And then you'll have other people who continue to hit it and hit it and hit it, and then it breaks, and when it breaks, all the sweets fall out, and everybody wants a share of the sweets. And the idea behind it is that I think that people miss 2 things. One is they miss this idea that, first of all, when you start in whatever venture it is that you're going to do, whatever business, you're probably going to be swinging wildly in the dark. There'll be a period of just getting started where you don't quite know where you're going.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for affirming that, because that's what I believe as well. It is just almost like kind of, finger to the wind kind of thing, to see what's going to stick, to see what is going to be the best way forward for you. And that's your beginner stage. Yeah, I agree totally.
So you'll have people who do that. Then you'll have people who, with a blindfold off, they start to have a bit of clarity. They start to say, oh, now I see where I'm going.
Yeah.
They start hitting with a stick. But then there's also a group of people who hit it with a stick and it doesn't break, and then they give up.
Yeah.
And then you've got those who keep hitting and keep hitting and keep hitting, and when it breaks, they're there to pick up the sweets. And so, whatever industry you're in, whether it's traditional business or particularly for those who are in network marketing, one of the things I often say is make sure you're around to pick up the sweets, because you're going to put the effort in anyway.
Yes. Yeah.
And I read a statistic recently that said that, on average, people try something new less than once, which means statistically most people never actually try.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's, in my experience, that's true. You speak to lots of people who say, yeah, I would love to do that, or I really want to do this, or I hate my job, but they're not willing to try and do something else. They're not willing to take some action and say, I'm going to put myself out there and we're going to have a go.
Exactly. And there's nothing, and what I love about the online world is the immediacy with which you can do things. And I think this is why I've been so successful online, because I'm just one of these people who, like, I keep hitting the piñata, and sometimes I get it wrong. So my piñata is, I put something out on Facebook, it doesn't stick, I delete it. Nobody ever knows it was there, except maybe a few people who commented on it. But then I think, okay, well, that was a wrong offer. So I put something else out there, and I just kept trying and trying and trying. And even now, now I'm getting it right more than I get it wrong, but I still put things out there, and I'm like, it didn't take. I'm supposed to be holding a mastermind at my house on Friday. I only have a couple of people who want to come to it. I'm like, I'm opening my house and nobody wants to come to it. It's, some things stick, other things. And then I have people saying, oh, I want to come to your mastermind. I'm in Colorado. I'm like, it's not online, it's in person. I want to see real people. But some things stick, some things don't. But you've got to be willing to put it out there so that you even know. And nobody's judging. And even if they are, they probably have nothing better to do with their life than judge.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, I ran an event just recently. It was a 2-day event actually, and we only had a few people turn up to that. But the people who turned up had massive, massive, massive value because there was only a few of them, and people were raving about it. And it's like, well, okay, so we didn't get 30 people in the room, but well, we gave value to some people. Somebody had a benefit from it.
You just never know the ripple effect either, Dean. It's like, so Jackie, who's here tonight, Jackie met me when I was the beginning of my journey. I couldn't figure out how to get a speaking gig. I was like, how are people getting speaking gigs? And I'm like, I'm going to run a workshop through Groupon. So I went through this whole process. Groupon's very stringent with who they let through. And I was selling these Groupon workshops, and Jackie came to one of my workshops, and we're still friends years later, and she's a client now, and she's got a whole nother business. But from that tiny seed, I think 2 or 3 people turned up to my Groupon workshops, but they're people I'm still in touch with. So you just never know who you're impacting, even if it's one person who turns up.
Absolutely. And you also don't know, somebody might come along to an event, you might never hear from them from 3 or 4 years, but they're actually following what you do. And you can never tell that, particularly in the online world. Some people don't like or comment or do anything with any of your posts. And then 2 years later, you get a message from them saying, I'd really like to sit down and have a conversation about doing some work with you.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yes.
well, that comes from.
And again, I'll back that up as well, because I've had people give me sort of a virtual tap on the shoulder going, I'm ready. I'm like, ready for what? They're like, I'm ready to buy. I'm like, I didn't even know you were following me. I don't even know who you are. I literally have had people that I wasn't even sure. I'm like, have we met before? That just kind of like, here's my card details. I've been following you. So you don't know, ladies, you don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, I got Harpreet, is a brand new client of mine, signed him today in the house. You don't know who's watching you. So keep showing up, because people don't necessarily engage, but they're still watching. So
Yeah, absolutely. And so, that idea of making sure that you're around to pick up the sweets at the end, make sure that you never ever, whatever it takes, make sure that you never quit at whatever your dream is. And the pathway can change, so you can meander across it. You can say, am I warm? Am I cold? Am I getting cold?
yeah.
Things can change, but never ever give up on where you're going and keep going in the same direction. The other thing about resilience is, and what I'll do, Denise, I can't put it on here because I can't access it off this particular machine, but I'll message you a link. I have a free download on resilience.
Fabulous. That sounds great.
And it's 21 days around mental toughness, and I'll share it with you, and then you can pass it on to the people in the group.
Oh, that's amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we should do the 21 days to mental resilience. Yeah, love it. Okay, can you talk us through? I want to finish about 9 o'clock. Could you finish telling us about your dream?
Sure. So the E stands for execute, and that's all around looking at the strategy. So that's a case of, okay, so this is where we want to be based on the vision that we set under our D when we defined it. Now we need to define a strategy. We need to work out a strategy using the execute stage that aligns with that. So not just any strategy, one that actually aligns with what we want to the end. So, from a coaching perspective, for example, we would talk about you've got speaking opportunities, there are masterminds, there are online coaching groups, there are online coaching programs, there's face-to-face masterminds, there's a whole live events, there's a whole plethora of strategies, but only some of them will align with what you want at the end. And so it's about choosing the right strategy.
Yeah.
So that question all the time, is this strategy going to get me closer to where I want to be or not?
Yeah.
So that's the E. The A is all about action. So that's about, okay, we've set a strategy, we've aligned it with what our vision is, we understand how to be resilient and move forward. So what actions are we going to take? What steps are we going to take right now that we can implement immediately? Not we're going to implement them on the 1st of November, or we're doing it right now.
Yes.
So most people in my experience know exactly what steps they could take right now to get slightly better results in their business, whatever their business is. So for network marketers, as an example, people will say, yeah, I know that if I reached out to a few more people on a daily basis, I would probably get slightly better results. but they don't do that. And so, you know, if we were doing this now, I'd be saying, okay, so whoever's in your group now who's a network marketer, how many, you know, could you contact 2 or 3 people right now while you're on here? Could you send a message to them about whatever your product or service is, and just
guys,
say,
I want you all, guys and girls, I want you to put your comments, what action you're going to take immediately, maybe even tonight.
yeah, sure, let's do something this evening. Let's get somebody.
Yeah, speed of implementation.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what the A is all about. The A is all about, let's get you moving, but get you moving now, immediately, and get into action. And then the M's all about mindset. You know, it's what separates. For me, it's what separates those who can do all of the previous 4 steps and those who don't get through them.
Yeah.
When that's, you know, from that's from both aspects. So that's around looking at, you know, personal belief systems in terms of what drives you, what's holding you back and what drives you, but also how to continue to maintain that on an ongoing basis, because we're all presented with obstacles.
What is the mindset practice? I think Fiona might have a question, but let me ask you, what is your mindset practice? How do you keep mentally strong?
So part of that is around my resilience program. So there's elements in there. So things understanding that external events don't have any meaning, save for the meaning that I give them. So I have a part of that mental toughness program will help people with that. It's about focusing on, I can't, you know, what I often ask a question. I give people the same scenario. So, you know, from a network marketing point of view, you're going to meet a prospect. They don't turn up for whatever reason. Or they message you beforehand and say, I can't make it. How do you feel? Most people will feel frustrated, angry, disappointed. Yet if they text you back 5 minutes later and said, the reason I couldn't make it was because, you know, my son's had a serious car accident, I'm on my way to the hospital or whatever, then you're going to feel guilty. Well, how can the same event make you feel guilty? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So that's one of my key things. And the other thing for me is that more so over the last 2 years, I've spent a lot of time focusing on this idea that, as I mentioned earlier, that thoughts arise. That doesn't mean they are an issue. They don't cause us problems. The only time they cause us problems is when we select one of them and we focus on that and we start thinking about that. And you end up in this, if you like, this washing machine of thoughts. You just continue going round and round and round, and then you catastrophize things to say, all of a sudden we've gone from just being, you know, I'm worried about doing this, to it's the worst thing in the world.
Yes. Yeah. Totally. We give life to those thoughts. I'm going to turn to Fiona. I think, Fiona, do you have a question? Do you want to ask something? I'm clicking chat for you. Does anyone have any questions for Dean? Fiona, I'm trying to unmute you. I don't know. Oh, I might not be able to because I gave all the control to Dean. Can you unmute Fiona? Can you see the can you see the contestants? I was going to call them contestants.
Fiona, yeah, allowed to talk.
Hi, Fiona. Do you have a question? You put your hand up. Was that an accident or intentional? I'm guessing maybe it was accidental. Okay, so we'll leave that at that. Any other questions for Dean? Because I need to go live at 9 o'clock in my group because I'm running a challenge at the moment. Dean, thank you. I struggle with getting people offline. Jill's is saying I struggle with getting people offline. And she's one of my network marketers.
Okay, so she's somebody who I think she's reached out to them online, and then they're looking to try and get a meeting face to face. My top tip is don't give too much information away. I have this saying where too many people in our industry and network marketing and other businesses, they spill all their candy in the lobby. You know, they show too much before people have got a level of are prepared to take some information. Ask more questions. Try and offer value and say you can solve their problem, and then say the only way to do that is I need to show you some information. I can't do that in this format, so we need to get together in some way, shape, or form.
Okay, there you go. You got one to check out there, Jills. Amazing. Fabulous. Okay, any other comments? Anything else for Dean? I think this has been so enlightening, and I'm so glad I've heard your story now. I've heard so many wonderful things about you. Elaine Mitchell is one of my clients as well. She said, Dean is amazing. She said, I can't make it tonight, but she said, Dean is amazing. You're going to have a great time. Maggie saying, thank you so much. So parting words from you, Dean. Anything else would you'd like to finish with for us?
I just, like I said, I always say this whenever I'm either speaking or I'm at an event, and that is that, you know, part of my journey is to share as much value as I can with people. So, you know, I'm always blessed to be able to be asked to do this in any way, shape, or form. So anybody who's either on here tonight and has asked a question or got value from it, then they've played a part in my journey, and therefore I thank them for that, because you know, that's taking me towards my vision as well.
Awesome. Dean, thank you so much. Everybody's putting their thanks in the comments. Thank you so much. Please give my regards to your beautiful wife, and I will catch you at another Evolve event. Thank you so much for your time. And give me the link for the resilience, and I'll get that out to everybody.
I will certainly do, and thank you for having me, Denise. It's been a
Amazing.
pleasure.
Thank you. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Everybody, take care.